Here at West Bank, we're really excited to sponsor Real Success, a new CBJ series featuring Iowa City's own Nate Kaeding. 2018 marks West Bank's 125th year of helping business owners and entrepreneurs find their own versions of success, whether that be opening a new store, planning for retirement, or anything in between. Please enjoy this edition of Real Success, hosted by Nate Kaeding, and thanks for watching.
Well, Dave, thanks for joining us for another edition of Real Success. We're here at the Corridor Business Journal International headquarters in beautiful North Liberty, Iowa. And you are about a month and a half away from retirement with CRST, and thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. Just wanted to kind of focus on mostly your career with like I said, with it nearing the end of your time at CRST, and maybe we can go back to the very beginning and just learn a little bit more about your background story and where you grew up and work your way through your academic history a little bit, and then we can kind of jump into your story there at CRST.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for inviting me in. Whenever you talk about success and I get a telephone call, it's always rewarding. The retirement, I'll be retired officially January 1 of 19, a couple of weeks. It's going to be a transition for me because I'm kind of a workaholic. Mm-hmm. So the one that's really panicked is my wife. Because she usually sees me about 5 hours a day, and now she's going to see more of me. But yeah, I've had a great career, and I really grew up in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I'm a Packer fan, and all my life I watched a lot of TV, and I wanted to be an FBI agent. Okay. Just wanted to chase bad guys. Sure. So I went to college, University of Wisconsin, and at the time, I still think that's the case, you either be a lawyer or a CPA. Mm-hmm. So I went the CPA route. Didn't even know what CPA meant, but you had to want to be an FBI guy. So went to Wisconsin, graduated with an accounting degree, and went to University of North Dakota and got my master's and my CPA certificate. Okay. Worked a little bit in Chicago for a big 8 accounting firm, but in a long time ago, it's going to age me, 74, I got a call from the FBI, and I knew they'd been looking at my background because I heard from people back home, Dave, are you in trouble? Right. No.
In the right way. Sometimes when the FBI is calling, that's a bad thing, right? Yeah.
So I went in the FBI, spent 6 years in the FBI and loved it. Okay. I met a good buddy down there that we went to the academy together, and we were both stationed in New Orleans, working political corruption. Wow. Which was fun, and we had a lot of success. I think we got 136 convictions.
Oh. And you get to choose when you get into the FBI which sort of track.
Well, they move you to the office where they have a need, and at the time, New Orleans, back in the late 70s, early 80s, was just riddled with corruption, and so they were looking for guys to go down there and spend time. I had the luxury and fun of working the Patty Hearst case for a bit. Oh wow! But during the 7 years I was down there, it's the government's a bureaucracy, and you went in every day and worked your tail off, but you were limited to what you could do and the scope of what you could do. Right. You followed the policy manual. Yep. So my friend and I started buying the houses, and at night we'd take our suit off and our gun off and sheetrock and do electrical work. And during the course of that 7 years, I think we did 50 houses. Wow.
Flipping them, buying them,
renovating and flipping them.
Little side hustle.
Side hustle, but I loved it. It was, and he was married, I was single, so it was a little bit different. But in early of 1980, we both got our transfer orders the same day. Mm-hmm. Me to Chicago and he to Cleveland. Okay. And he was a Florida guy. So we sat on the porch of one of our houses, and actually we bought 2 quarts of beer, and we sat there and sipped our beer and said, what are we going to do?
Yeah, that's all world proud.
All world proud.
Life decisions.
So we made a decision that we were going to resign from the Bureau, which is a tough decision because we both loved it. And we set up 2 companies, one renovating houses, Rusch and Hayes Investments, and another one, Rusch and Hayes Investigations, basically doing private investigative work for the defense side of the table. The beauty of my career the last 28 years with CRST versus 6 years with the government, 10 years with PepsiCo, which is a $30 billion bureaucratic conglomerate. Sure. I started with CRST, and you could feel the entrepreneurialism.
Right.
From Harold Smith starting it with 2 trucks, to growing it, to John taking over. It was very entrepreneurial, very quick reacting,
Absolutely.
private, and we could react to the marketplace quickly. So it was really a menu that really fed my personality.
Right.
How about looking back? I mean, there's always the wins and the big games you win in football or something else, but there's also the big losses and those things too. Is there, as you look back on it, was there one challenge that you faced or decision that you made? If you were to go back, you would have done something differently?
I think one of the things that I didn't do the first 10 years or 6-7 years of my tenure with CRST, when I got here, I was invincible. I could do it myself.
Right.
And I was the little dictator sitting in my office and telling my people what to do, how to do it. And I probably didn't start developing management talent until probably 2010, 2009 or 10, when it became the number one priority. Because you're only as good as your people. Right. And one person can grow out of ability to run it by himself. And it happened with me. So we focused a lot on that. It was probably one of my errors early on when I got here. And the second one is we were buying companies and we're spending, obviously, a truck costs $140,000. Mm-hmm. And when you buy Gardner Trucking, you can buy 2,000 trucks. Sure. So very capital intensive. And one of the things that we probably didn't do well enough is I didn't do early enough on, is invest in technology. Okay. And if I could go back 10 years, I would have started that process a bit earlier. Mm-hmm. And now we are in the process of doing a complete conversion of our mainframe into a system that all companies can tap into and provide data and that type of thing. So technology, a little slow on hitting the ball there. Okay. And the other one is, if I could start my career over, it'd all be about management development and bringing in the right people to help you with that, because it is a unique discipline.
Where was it? What caused you to realize to appreciate that management work as an executive, to be able to delegate and build the team around you? Was it just maturing over in growth
and if you ask around the industry, people that don't really understand us, they would say CRST is a difficult place to work. So going out on the street and hiring people, bringing in people from other companies into our company, it's always difficult.
Because demanding.
We're demanding. I have a philosophy, right, wrong, or indifferent, but I think it's right, that everybody's got to walk in that front door every day and they've got to produce. Mm-hmm. It isn't what you did yesterday, it's what you do today and tomorrow. And, we've got compensation packages and incentive packages that reward our people very well. Sure. But they got to come in every day. They don't have to be perfect, but they got to hit some base hits. Mm-hmm. And they've got to be there, and they've got to be putting in the effort. Right. And so we're a challenging place to work for if you don't have that inner passion, that inner drive, and that inner desire to win every day. So the goal is, and what we're doing now very effectively, I hired Brooke Willie. I believe she came from, I can't remember where she came from anymore. I brought her in 2010 to really head our human resource department, but with a big focus on management development. Okay. And she's done an outstanding job bringing people in from the streets, in from the University of Iowa, in from Iowa State, in from Kirkwood, getting them acclimated to our company, and so they can understand our culture when they start entering the management range, and they understand what we're looking for in the discipline. So that's probably one of the failures that I had, if I look at a failure, is not kicking that off earlier. Okay.
And you mentioned, the workforce, technology, so let's fast forward 15 years from now. As you're retired, you're looking back on your CRST career. I mean, what are you most excited to watch play itself out over the next decade in the trucking industry in specifically?
Well, back to the people. It is the people, and I think I'm so excited. We bought a company called Pegasus out of Louisville, Kentucky, 2 years ago. We're the largest plasma hauler in the United States, refrigerated trailers. Okay. And we just promoted one of those young individuals that started in our early on management development training classes back in 2010. He just became president of Pegasus. So I think when I look back, I'll be on the CRST board, but when I look back, I'm hoping to see a lot of our young ladies and young men move into the senior management ranks.
Seeds that you've helped plant. Yeah.
Seeds that we helped plant,
Watch them grow and mature.
years ago. That's going to be the biggest. And also, I know how I define success, and it's probably a little bit different maybe than most people, but we've got an obligation to our shareholders. Mm-hmm. And number one thing, you have to make sure you're meeting the expectation of your shareholders, and that's part of that's financial. And you've got to deliver the revenue growth. You have to deliver the profitability. And CRST has been debt-free for probably 12 years, 13 years, and all of our growth has been funded through operations,
that's amazing.
Which has been kind of exciting.
Yeah. A couple other quick things here, just looking back on your career. If you were to go talk to that young man that PepsiCo just hired, you're sitting there in your first day in your cubicle, what advice would you give yourself back then that you didn't know then?
It's about the people. I think one of my ingredients that I bring to the CRC table is that passion, that desire to win, in a different world, but kind of the Vince Lombardi thought process in life. And like I say, nobody's going to outwork me if I got a goal out there that I want to accomplish and my team's with me. But I do think you, as a young person, you don't look at developing people the way you should from the onset when you get into management.
Right.
It's almost a given. You're more concerned about what you're doing versus what you could help other people do. Mm. And, that took me, 20 years of my career before I woke up and said, hey, this doesn't work.
That's great. And it definitely sounds like you're someone that's, obviously been head down doing the work and may or may not have had the time to sort of reflect on it. But, in January 1st, you're going to retire, thinking of that day and you looking back on your career there. What do you think you're going to miss the most about CRST and the workplace on a day-to-day basis?
It's, it's winning. Mm-hmm. It's coming in there knowing you're accomplishing something, you're building something. I think CRST's recognized as one of the top echelon carriers in the country right now. And I've certainly, helped do that along with the Smith family and the other management team guys and ladies. We've just done a good job building something that I'm very proud of. Yeah. To walk away from it, it's going to be difficult. Mm-hmm. And, I'm confident the management team that we have in place now, the new CEO, he's got the same fire in his belly that I have, and I will be on the board, so I'll do everything I can to make sure that success continues. But it will be difficult. It will be challenging. I will fail in retirement the first few months.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's great. Then the last question we like to end with, if you were to define success, looking back on your career, just in one sentence or in a short paragraph, how would you define success?
Well, there's all kinds of success. Success in your personal life, success on the golf course. But in my world of business, it isn't a global thought process or something that's mind stimulating. But I'd say I always define success as when I can look at the shareholders and I met their expectation. Mm-hmm. 2, my customers perceive me as the best in class, because without those customers, what you have won't be successful in the future. Yeah. And then 3, your management team and your executives, you want to give them an environment where they can grow and they can prosper.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think if you hit those 3 expectations of the shareholders, your customers love you, and your management people say, hey, this is a great place to work, I'm growing and I'm prospering. If you can put those things to bed, I think you're going to be a successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very great advice. Thank you, Dave, for taking the time.